last 15 years, I've been able to really steer my career back into the intellectual property realm, both on the dispute resolution side, but far more on the kind of the transactional with counseling side, to help people not only avoid potential problems down the road, but also help them, help choose and identify things that they want to protect. Because it's, there's that side as well, not just avoiding problems, but also really putting a fence around your own property.
Yeah, because, you did a post, I don't know, maybe it was a month or two ago, and it was about, I guess it was some kind of superhero cup. And,
oh, yeah.
and I loved it, that I read it like 3 or 4 times, and I was like, I never really thought about, because you don't think about stuff like that. But it's amazing how, like, trademarks, you don't really think about it until you get hit with a cease and desist letter,
Yeah, and there's all sorts of kind of, unexploded mines, so to speak, out there. A lot of things just don't get seen or picked up, and that happens. Great, no harm, no foul potentially. But there's a lot of people out there with kind of contingent problems, and it's not all can be avoided, but many things you can certainly reduce your risk, by spending a little time thinking about what you're doing, beforehand. Because it's not, it's very easy with, say, real estate, if you're encroaching on someone else's rights, if you're kind of trespassing or not, or if, personal property, if you take someone else's pen or something like that, that, you're lifting it, so to speak. But with intellectual property, it's just intangible, and it's not necessarily intuitive. It's what the boundaries are, what you can and can't do. We don't know that inherently as well as we do. We don't have a concept, understanding of what's right and wrong like we do with physical property.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people that listen to this, they're either veterans, they're entrepreneurs, or they're both. So what are some of the mistakes that you see, because everybody, that I talk to, not everybody, but, as soon as a veteran gets out of the military, he wants to open up a T-shirt, a hat company, coffee, or liquor. And then 6 months later, they're $10,000 in debt and getting sued for something.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the mistakes that new entrepreneurs make that they can head off at the pass before they even start?
Yeah, the biggest one is clearance. That's what I call clearance, or what most intellectual property lawyers will call clearance, which is if you start selecting things that you want to use to kind of identify your name or your logo, that sort of thing. Well, yeah, that's great. Do it, but before you start adopting it and using it, do a search. Make sure that someone else is not senior to you, is using either the same or a similar mark with same or similar goods or services. Because you may just be walking into that cease and desist letter. Doesn't mean if they are same or similar that you cannot use it, but there's more to the analysis. You may need to consult somebody else. But that's what people often fall in love with: name, logo, and they just start using it. That happens. That happens a lot. What else did you see? The other thing that I see a lot is other folks, not necessarily trademarks, the logos, the slogans, the names, but I see people using a lot of others' content without permission, and not, there's no nefarious intent. Sometimes it's just kind of thoughtless, and that can really expose folks to a lot of liability. What you often see is, someone will use they'll just snap some photo, grab some photo from the web somewhere and bury it on their website someplace, and like, that's really cool, let me use that. Don't really think about the fact that it's somebody else's property, and that's going to be a copyright violation most likely, and there can be a lot of exposure there, and so that gets, I run into that issue a lot. People come to me and say, well, I got this cease and desist, I got this, not just a cease and desist, but a demand for payment for using this photo that I don't even really care about, and now I got a demand for several hundred to sometimes several $1,000s for use of this photo that I never really cared about in the first place. It's just an expensive mistake.
Yeah, I guess because you used to be able to get photos off of Google, and now you can't even do that anymore. Maybe that's for the same reason, for trademark purposes?
Well, this is going to be copyright. I mean, photos and images like that, GIFs, stuff like that, those are going to be copyright issues. If they're logos, if these images happen to be logos as well, they may be copyright and trademark problems. So there's some, with photos and things like that, there's some licensing agencies, where you can get a royalty-free license or pay for a license, but there's still dangers there if the rights aren't, really within that house, so to speak, and sometimes they're not. The best thing you can do, of course, is to take your own photographs or really know the chain of title, where it comes from. But it's someplace people really got to be careful. That's where I see a lot of problems. Those two things I just mentioned: not clearing stuff before someone uses it. And this is kind of the same sort of, it's a similar principle, using photographs and other things downloaded from the web without permission. If you didn't create it, that's going to cause a problem.
Okay, now because now, as far as social media goes, there's hashtags everywhere. Can a hashtag be copyrighted?
It definitely cannot be copyrighted. Copyright protects something more substantial than a hashtag. What people usually ask is whether a hashtag can be protected by a trademark, or as a trademark. And I guess it's a qualified yes, although in most instances a hashtag cannot. So I would not count on trying to, make a hashtag exclusive to you. And the reason being is the function of a trademark really is to help consumers identify a single source of goods or services. If I see Nike or a swoosh or whatever, I know that that's associated with a particular brand that produces clothing, apparel, shoes, that sort of thing. Hashtags don't tend to do that. The function of a hashtag is really to help guide conversation, group conversation, group posts, that sort of thing. So with that kind of function of a hashtag, yeah, I understand you might have hashtag Nike, but even so, if a lot of people do posts on it, might be hashtag Nike, but there may be posts that are criticizing Nike. It may not be just offering products or services. So, the hashtag has a larger purpose, not just steering people toward buying goods or services. I know I'm being a little hyper technical here, but
no, but because it's a lot of questions that ever since I got hit with that, now I start thinking, okay, hold on, let me rethink everything that I do before I make the same. And the funny thing is, the guy that had the name Supplement Guy, I actually became friends with him over that. And I've actually been to his company and had lunch and actually bought some of his products. So now we're actually friends. But I was like, I could either be real arrogant about it or humble myself and say, what, you're right, I'm wrong, and let's just drop it. And we drop it,
No, that's a great result. When as a person who helps people, others resolve disputes, that's the kind of outcome when it's warranted and possible that makes you feel good at the end of the day. Most people view so many disputes about, there's binary.